This video is part 2 of the creation to Christ, and it started with part 1 and the creation and Adam and Eve and their sin that separated them from God. And then with the call of Abraham, we began to look onward toward Christ, where God called Abraham, and through Abraham, all the families of the earth will be blessed. The Messiah would restore that broken relationship between God and man, and he'd be a descendant of Abraham. And that promise to Abraham that the Messiah would come through his line, it continued through his son Isaac, and then through Isaac's son Jacob, who later God renamed Israel. Israel had 12 sons, and I want to particularly mention 2 of those sons. The 2 sons of Israel that I want to mention in particular are one, Judah, because the Messiah would be a descendant of Judah, and the other is Joseph, because Joseph was the son that was sold into slavery by his brothers. And as a slave in Egypt, the Lord lifted him up, and he became second in command of the powerful nation, Egypt. And when there was a famine in the land, Israel and all the brothers of Joseph relocated to Egypt. And during that time, God blessed them, and they multiplied greatly. As the generations passed, a Pharaoh was raised up who didn't remember Joseph. And because Israel had multiplied as a people so much, he even was killing the young children, and Moses was rescued. And eventually, Moses led Israel out of Egypt, and they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. While they were in the wilderness, Moses received the 10 commandments from God on the mountain, and Moses' brother Aaron was established as the priest for Israel. And this system, sacrificial system of the law, was established. After Moses had led the people wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, it was Joshua, upon Moses' death, that led Israel into the promised land. And the sacrificial system, the Levitical system, the law, it only showed how far short man was in their relationship with God. They could never live by the Levitical laws. And this became all the more evident during the period of the Judges, where because of the sin of the people, they would be oppressed by the other nations. And through the God empowering the judge, they would be delivered. But again, they would become oppressed and delivered. And it was because they could never save themselves. This followed the period of the kings. And under one king, they especially had a period that was really a golden period for Israel, where King David ruled. And the Messiah would be like King David. That was the closest they had to the ideal, but the Messiah would come like King David. During the period of the kings, God would raise up prophets to call the people of Israel back to himself, and the prophets would point to the day the Messiah would come, and they gave many prophecies concerning the coming Messiah. The last prophet made a prophecy that the forerunner would come in the spirit of Elijah, and there were 400 years between the last prophecy and the time that John the Baptist came on the scene to announce that the Messiah, Jesus Christ, has come.